Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm going to start a new series called The Ultimate Upgrade, and I'm going to start with the humble Squier Bullet Telecaster in surf green. Picked this up off Thomann for 171 euro. Dirt cheap, so it's got some cheap stuff on it obviously, so it needs a lot of upgrades. Indian laurel fingerboard, which is quite nice. It's the first time I've seen one. Obviously Fender's way of trying to get around the sights regulations and stuff. What a headache. What will I do? Change pickups, change the saddles, change the wiring, change the pickguard most likely. I may refret it. I'll see. Bone nut, clousson tuners. I'll do a new headstock decal and finish the neck in some gunstock oil. That's about it. I've got a set of Porter custom tele pickups ready to go in. I may just do the Porter bridge and go with a TV Jones Filtertron in the neck or a TV Jones T Armand. I've got both of those lying around as well. Let's see what happens. I'm just going to break down the guitar and basically get it ready. That's it. There are a couple of things that I have to kind of throw away. Well, not throw away, put aside. It's the knobs, the knurled insides won't fit onto the American pots, so I won't be able to use them. The jack cap, it's usable and it's not plastic or anything, but I prefer to put a Les Paul style jack plate on a telly instead of one of these, because then you can use a right angle jack, which gets annoying when you can't on one of these, so I will be replacing that. The switch tip, this is only for little Asian switches that have the small tip to the switch, so I can't use that. Good thing I've got other ones there. Cool thing is that the holes for the pots are big enough already for the USA pot shafts, so that's cool. I hope the switch area is long enough. Sometimes that's a little bit short, and then the new Oak Grigsby switch doesn't engage fully on either end, so I'll double check. If not, I've got another one lying around. We'll likely use the same neck plates. It has Squier written on it, but hey, I want to be true to the guitar. It is a Squier, so I'm not going to try and lie about what it is. Cool. And then these saddles, they're pretty cool block solid saddles, but they're just not really nice. I've got a set of really nice stainless steel block saddles which I will put on instead of this. Cool. I'm going to start with the neck. So the neck, we'll start with removing the tuners, removing the nut. I am going to refret. These frets just aren't seated perfectly, and I think I'd just like to do it a much more detailed job. And then I will also scrape away the Squier logo on the front and the stuff on the back as well. So yeah, I'll get started. These are always a stock standard 10mm nut. So those will come off easy enough.
High-speed mode.
That was easy. That took probably 20 scrapes with a razor blade, and it's gone. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to quickly score the edges.
A bit of persuasion. Sometimes I use a heck of a lot of glue. It's coming.
There we go. I think it's pretty obvious to state that when you scrape wood or sand wood, you go with the grain. Done. Now when removing frets, one always uses a soldering iron or soldering iron if you're from America. The reason why I use solder is it just helps to transfer the heat way quicker through the fret, and I don't sit here all day. So basically get that heat into the fret, and out she comes. If you pull frets cold, you get tear out. That's it. Warp speed
For the rest.
Done. Alright, off camera I cleaned off the board and cleaned out the fret slots and just beveled the edges of the fret slots slightly. Ready to go. It's a 9.5 inch radius. What I've decided to do is, although I could go stainless steel, I'd like to go nickel, and I'm going with 5590 Jescar, which is basically 6105 Dunlop as well. I buy my fret wire from Philadelphia Luthier Tools. They don't sponsor me, so that was a free plug, Philadelphia Luthier Tools. Why I do that is because it comes pre-radiused. I can buy it in any radius I want, and they're chopped into little pieces already, and it makes my life a little easier. So when I install frets, you know, there's a little bit of wastage, obviously, but it's still fairly economical. So I'm going with that size fret wire, you know, slightly taller than vintage. The ones that were on were ever so slightly wider than this and ever so slightly shorter or smaller in profile. So not what I wanted. Let's see. I will get started with this. Kind of wondering what everybody wants to see in the this particular series. I'm gonna use jaws for the first part of this, because a lot of people have access to this, and then I will move on to my fret press when I get down to the flatter side of the, you know, the heel, because this has a caul that's different. Although I can switch to a flat caul that I have, just a pain in the bum. So I'm going to do it this way, and I need to change my caul to a 9.5 inch radius. This fret press works so well because you can basically decide how much pressure you want to use and get it in there, and then basically just squeeze it down. Way off. Oh, she just slipped in. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's a way better size. Seated really well. Fingerboard prep is a big deal. You know, prepping your fingerboard well before a refret is pretty key. You know, that's going to tell you how well your frets are going to sit, and you know, all that preparation comes through in the end. So there we go. Back to warp speed for the rest. So that's as far as I'm able to go with the jaws fret clamp. Now you can obviously see in the profile the back shape of the neck. The profile changes and starts to kind of become the flat area. So I can't really use it for that last fret. I could probably squeeze one in, but I don't want to. They've gone in so easily. Actually, they've really settled well. So I mean, they just kind of jumped in. Other techs will know what I'm talking about when they just go in and stay in. So that's really cool. Once I've done the rest of the frets, I'll do a level check afterwards and make sure that they're all kind of primarily level with each other, and there's no kind of really high ones, which will make my life easier when I level later. What I like to do when I glue them in is I wick some super glue, really thin super glue, down the edge, and it sucks it in down the edge. So I try not to get as much. I try not to get super glue onto the fingerboard as much as possible. Just makes cleaning up easier. Yeah, so I'm going to get my press out, and I'll move my camera, and you can have a look and see what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the fret press, and some guys cut them all beforehand and get them all ready. Sometimes I put them in a little block that I've drilled out for each and every fret. Don't want to push too hard, just want to get them seated. Same thing, I've got my other 9.5 inch radius pressing coil in there. Something really therapeutic about fret work here. I really enjoy it. You know, you can kind of do a refret in a day. You just don't want to rush it, you know. Something about doing it properly. Let's finish this up in a bit of warp speed.
There we go.
Right, they're all in. I'll just do a level check and squeeze in the frets, you know, in places if there's any ones that are higher than some. You know, I'll go around with a fret rocker like this and just double check. So far, no kind of bad ones, really bad, but anyway. Every now and then one pops up. You see that little guy's slightly up. Pop him down just a tiny bit. Yeah, and then I'll come back and glue, which I won't have to show you guys. I described it to you already. Then I'll trim and level and whatever. So, cool. Okay, forgive some of the camera work, please. I always forget to keep my hands out the way. Experimenting as I go here with some of the camera angles. I know I should have had this done beforehand, but anyway, I can't go back with the project, so I can't redo the camera angles. Cool, so these have been glued in for about 30 minutes, and it's low viscosity super glue, so it'll dry pretty quickly. While I was waiting, I took some 800 grit paper and got this lovely and smooth. Just started with the back of the headstock too, just kind of doing some prep while I can. Trying to speak so loud because my face is so close to the camera. I'm going to trim and show you how I do it. So I have my normal flush ground fret nippers, which are chewed up from stainless steel. Thank you, stainless steel. And I have a leveling file here, which I use. I also will show you why I use a radius coil, just because it's a bit of a straight edge with some sanding paper on it. And I have some super fine 800 grit on here, which is kind of worn out as well on a piece of flat maple. I'll show you what I do. This is kind of just my vibe and what I kind of do. So I'm just going to nip away. haven't done any leveling of the tops of the frets yet. What I usually do is try to stop messing around with the edges where I can affect the level. You know, if I, for instance, have leveled and then I come and do the edges and somehow I unseat one of the frets a little, then I've got to level again. So this just makes a whole lot more sense. Neck's got quite a nice weight to it. Feels quite solid. I'm quite pleased. I think once done with it, it'll feel real good, especially with a smooth true oil or gunstock oil finish. It'll feel really nice to play. Okay, so I've nipped all the ends. Now, you know, you can get those fret beveling files, which I have. I just don't use it. I just find this is easier. I kind of feel what's happening in my hand, and I got more control over the angle of the file. And normally I'll kind of start off quite flat so that I can nail the burrs on the end of the tangs, and then I'll kind of bring it back to an angle. And look, I'm not doing a precise angle, but in the end you kind of go with feel here a little bit. And you can also start to feel when you're not just filing frets. You know, the file starts to sound a bit different and it starts to glide a bit easier. You find you're not biting into as much individual frets. You're kind of starting to hit the wood a little bit. And I'm also barely using much pressure. Coming back, feeling what I'm doing. My oldest brother is a panel beater, and I remember helping him out when I was younger on school holidays. And he always told me, go not just by sight, but go by feel, because you can feel bumps, you can feel irregularities far easier than you can see them with your eye. You see how it starts to change? So I'll just carry on doing this, get the bevel right. And then I'll do some of the dressing before leveling. Now once I've done some of the beveling and I've done to where I'm happy with the angle there, there's a bit of file chatter on the edges there and it's almost perfect. This is when I bring a straight edge across, or a radius block with some, I think this is 220, and I just carefully, very, very carefully work on the edges a tiny bit. It gets rid of some of the file chatter. Now, obviously, this is a non-maple board, so I'm not paying as much attention to this edge as I need to. If this was a maple board, I would be very cautious. Right. Now I come in with some 800 grit, and this just starts that polishing of the end, gets it looking great. Even though I know I'm going to refinish this neck, plus I'm going to roll these fingerboard edges a tiny bit. a more is more approach here to keeping things looking good. It's all part of the process. I mean, if I bring that up to you and show the camera, try and get that angle there. There we go. You can see the ends of the frets are looking really nice. Try not to shout into the camera. There you go. They actually start to look so polished, and it's all just part of the process. Next, I'm going to dress the ends of the frets, and I use a funky looking file. It's a bit of a drumstick I've stuck on the end of it. Actually just a StewMac fret end dressing file. The key thing though is it's got a, try and get this on, it's got a gentle kind of rounded off edge and a fairly sharp edge, and a file on both sides. This really helps. So what I do is I'll just go around on a random fretcher in the middle of the camera, but I first use the sharp edge just to catch any burrs right over there, so just to bring those burrs out from the sanding and filing process, and then I swap over to the soft edge that doesn't scar the fingerboard, and I'm just going for a roll there to bring it around, being nice and smooth on the end, doesn't cut your fingers. You might be asking, why are you doing this before you're leveling? Well, very often when you're doing this, your file slips, and sometimes you scrape the top of the fret like that. So easy, tiny little scratch, but it's so hard to polish that out just with the polishing process when you're doing it. Whereas if you do this, you can just get the ends again lightly if you need to after leveling, and then your recrowning of the fret takes care of that. And that's pretty much what I'm going for right there. Once I've kind of done all of those, I use a little diamond file like this, flat file, because it doesn't leave much scarring. Then I start to round the edges of the fingerboard, and I'm going really lightly and really rolling them. I really want to have a sort of a played in feel. I don't want to go too much, but I'm just creating that played in feel. You know, you look at high-end guitars like Nick Huber and PRS and Ernie Ball, Music Man and stuff like that. They've got these beautiful edges that just feel so nice to play. That's basically what's going on. So I'm doing that, just watching what I do, slow and steady, not putting a lot of pressure on. There we go. And after that, yeah, I'm going to come through with right across the board. I use these soft, these are 400 grit. This is worn in a bit though. It's a sponge backed sanding pad, you know, and I'll just come across the whole thing. Just really rounds everything off. And then I follow that up with, usually follow that up with one of these old 3M pads again, but obviously I'm doing the whole board. I'm just showing you just a section. That just brings that finished look to it all. I'll bring that into the camera so you can see. Can you see that? Yeah, hopefully you get the idea. That's what you want. Feels good, looks pro, and yeah, the rest of the board will be done just like that. All right, so I'm kind of in the middle of the leveling process. What I did was I'm not leveling this under string tension just yet. Such a stable neck, I'm finding that I'm going to go ahead and just do a light level without string tension. It's pretty much what they would do in a factory if it wasn't plecked. So I made sure the neck was perfectly straight, and marked off all the frets, and then took a 10-inch radius block, because it turns out this is more of a 10 than a 9.5, and I lightly leveled the tops. I only needed the actual weight of the radius block itself. I did not need to put a lot of pressure down at all. I played a little bit down in this area, a bit more, to create a tiny bit of a fall away, which just helps with bending up at the top of the neck. And then I'm now in the process of recrowning them. And basically, you know, it's a diamond file that's got a concave profile to it. And all I'm doing is rounding the tops of the frets to make them perfectly round again. Now, the advantage that I have in this whole scenario is that I took care right from the start, from pulling frets, preparing slots, to preparing the fingerboard, making sure it was nice and level, making sure everything was clean, seating my frets properly, making sure they were primarily level before gluing them, and then taking care throughout. What this has meant is that I'm taking minimal life of the frets away. I'm spending less time having to round them over in the leveling process. So that makes my life easier down the track. So all these little things, that's a tip for you. Just take time and take care to do it properly. And it just pays off down the track. So yeah, that's it, basically. Okay, I'm done with the polishing and all the rest of it. A bit of elbow grease, but the result is always good. I'm real happy with that. So yeah, I'm gonna basically hit this entire neck with 400 grit and then 800 grit, and then start with some gun stock oil on it, you know, the true oil stuff. I'm probably gonna put a bit of amber tint in it, but not much, just to give it a bit of a vintage edge. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, true oil, some vintage amber, and I'm gonna just rub it on. So I'm probably gonna do, you know, a good few coats of this in any case. You know, do 2 coats, let it dry overnight, a couple more coats, let it dry overnight, rubbing in between. But that's the gist of it. And I'm just going to rub it on with some paper towel. I'm not too precious about this right now because it's going to get so many coats and going to be rubbed on so many times. I'm happy with how I've prepared. And I'm just going to go ahead and slap some on. I'm not even wearing gloves, probably a bad idea, but anyway. You can see just a touch of amber, just to give it a tiny bit of an aged look. I'm going this side of the nut, or where the nut would be as well, just to give it that finished look there. And then I'm going to flip it over. You're supposed to rub this on like liberally, like, you know, once and leave it, you know. But I'm doing so many coats. Yeah, it's gonna great. Just enough to make it look luxurious. It'll look great when it's done. I really should have made a better plan. Next time, I'll have a better plan. The temptation is to go over spots again and again and again in one go. But you just got to put it on, step away, which I will do. Take my daughter for a walk, come back, do another coat, hang it up. Okay, I'm busy doing stuff while I wait for the neck to dry. So this is the bridge and the saddles, and as I mentioned, I've got some nice stainless steel block saddles too. Now here's a tip. There are different width saddles depending on the string spread on a guitar. The saddles are a different width. So I went and measured, and we have 10.73, which is pretty much 10.8. 10.8, and I have two kinds of saddles here. I've got a 10.5 and I got a 10.8, and you wouldn't think it would make much of a difference, but if you've got 10.5s and you put 10.8s on, it's going to do this and spread them out like this. Look terrible. And if you got 10.8s and you put 10.5s on, you'll get away with it, but you'll have gaps in between. So that's a little tip right there. I'm going to go ahead and change them up. Give this a little bit of a wipe while we're in there. There we go. What did I say? 10.8s or 10.5s? 10.8s they were. 5's gone. 8's in. Oh, these are nice. They just... Let me show you. That's the stock saddle. Come on. And that's the stainless steel saddle. So that's stock. That's the stainless steel one. And it just looks way more classy. Let's see. I do, though, prefer the length of the other saddle screws. Let's see if they fit. And they do. So I'm going to use the screws from the old saddles. Springs. Much easier to do this with a screwdriver. That looks better. Done. Okay, so the next step is getting the decal on, and this is a really high quality decal, as you can see. It's actual silver ink, and use some room temperature water, maybe a little bit warmer than room temp. Stick it in there. Make sure your surface is clean. It starts to relax a bit. See, it stops curling over. I take a little bit of water on my fingertip, just pop it on the area. Right. Just kind of test it. It should start to come away. There you go, starting to come away from the paper. And then get it sort of in place there. Right. Now because I put some water around, I can move it a little bit more. And then get her in place. It's a bit tricky because I don't have vintage vintage size holes for the tuners, so I need to position it so that the tuner washers don't go over the logo. I reckon that'll do. And once you've done that, grab a little bit of paper towel and very carefully just dry the area off there. Done. So I ended up going with the mint green guard. I don't know if the camera is picking up just the correct color of all this. I'm finding that the cameras tend to lie about the colors a little bit. But I've gone with the mint green. The Porter custom tellies are in. I've just decided to keep it simple. And then I've gone with Emerson wiring here. I've done this myself, but I've used an Emerson Pro volume pot, and I've used an Emerson cap as well, paper and oil cap, and four-way switching, which gives me the opportunity to have them running in series as well as, you know, and then this is the way I wire a jack. I just put some heat shrink around the terminals as well, just to give it that extra strength. I stole that idea from Mitch from Emerson Custom as well. Yep, so that's a nice upgrade, and I'll get that fitted. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the square Les Paul style jack plates, but I do have one of these guys, which is great. Still nice and solid, and that'll go on now too. So I'm going to rig that up and then crack on. All right, so I'm really happy with the way the necks turned out. Everything looks pretty good to me. The finish is really nice. It's almost a satin finish on the back of the neck. Feels really nice. Very, very slight tint. Now I'm going with a set of Clousons, and yeah, let's have a look. Let's see how they look. If you're wondering, these are MS6LC models. Wow, they're really pretty. They've got this really nice retro logo going on the back, which is pretty cool. They feel so good. What a nice upgrade. They cover up the old holes really well. Yeah. So my thing with these, let's see, are they all the same height?
Let's see why I'm doing this in a second. Just for me.
Double check that they're all the same height. Yep. Don't want to put the wrong ones in the wrong position if they've been made differently. Okay. Get these on first. And then I'll line them up from behind. Yeah. So on, and then I'll flip it over. Okay, so instead of doing a bone nut, I've decided to use a Graphtec nut because I got some of them as well. What I found though was that the string spacing on the nut itself is a little bit too narrow for my liking. So I got enough height anyway to work with, so I'm eliminating those original string slots, and I'll just cut new ones at the spacing that I want. Okay, so we're done. Project's done and I'm happy. What else can I say about it? Everything we did. Mint green pickguard, stainless steel saddles. We did a set of Porter pickups, custom tellies. They're on Nico 5s. Nice for all sorts of music. I ended up using the same knobs, and I just opened up the inside with a Dremel. I just found they were better, and they're seated just fine. Four-way switching for that extra series position with both. So you got the bridge position, you got parallel, and you've got the neck position, and you've got series. Sounds really full and open. Did a football jack over there, jack plate, which is quite nice. You can use a right angle jack, no problem. We refretted with Jesscar fret wire. to the same size as 6105 Dunlop, which is pretty cool. Did a Graphtec nut and the logo, plus a set of Clue-on tuners, which are pretty cool. The neck turned out so silky smooth, really good feel to it, and I like the profile too. Love to keep it, but she's gonna have to go and make way for the next project. So time for a quick demo. Just playing through a little Yamaha THR10, and so nothing fancy, no pedal voodoo or anything, just set to clean, not too loud because I don't want to compress the video too much, but yeah, here's the bridge position. Parallel. Neck. Series. Plenty of good sweep in the tone and the volume. I'm happy. Hey, thanks for watching, and if you liked what you saw, please subscribe and like it, and see you next time. Cheers. Hello. Outtakes. Say bye. Bye.